faithfully, conveying value by interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally with the Book Talk. Today, I'm going to interpret this book for you, Inferiority and Transcendence, a classic by the great psychologist Adler. It tells us how to overcome inferiority, transcend ourselves, and change our life's destiny. We usually think that only people with poor conditions feel inferior. For example, not tall enough, not pretty enough, or low education, family too poor. However, Adler believed that everyone has a sense of inferiority. Those who appear strong, arrogant, and assertive actually hide a sense of inferiority that's very different from their exterior. The author of this book, Alfred Adler, was also a very inferior person. He had a plain appearance, was short, hunchbacked, suffered from rickets, and only learned to walk unsteadily at age 4. Moreover, he had an outstanding older brother. The comparison was like heaven and earth, which deepened his inferiority even more. So, not only was he untalented, but he also had bad luck. As a child, he experienced 2 car accidents, facing the fear of death early on. So, this was a child with innate deficiencies and unfortunate circumstances. To overcome inferiority and transcend himself, he aspired to become a doctor. Through relentless effort, he truly enacted a story of a frog turning into a prince. Ultimately, he not only became a medical doctor, but was also appreciated by the renowned psychoanalyst Freud, became the first president of the Vienna Psychoanalytic Association, and was hailed as the father of modern self-psychology. However, Adler's academic views were quite different from Freud's. Freud emphasized innate biological factors, believing that human behavior is driven by sexuality. Adler did not believe that human destiny is solely determined by innate factors. He emphasized more on social factors influencing people, believing that human behavior is driven by personal goals and social motives. An individual can change their destiny through acquired effort, which also led Adler to break with Freud and establish a new psychological school. That is what we call individual psychology today, which values individual acquired effort. Adler believed that if a person can find the true meaning of life, they can have the courage to overcome innate limitations, conquer inferiority, and transcend themselves. One could say Adler's own experience is a classic case of overcoming inferiority to change one's destiny. So this is precisely the foundation for his founding of individual psychology. The book we're discussing today, Inferiority and Transcendence, is a representative work of individual psychology. And it was published in 1932, and its English name directly translates to What Life Should Mean to You. The reason it was translated as Inferiority and Transcendence is because inferiority is the core concept of Adler's individual psychology, and transcending oneself is the lifelong pursuit of all people. Since its publication, this book has been translated into over a dozen languages, bestsellers in many countries, and renowned social psychologists like Maslow and Murphy have praised it highly. Today, we'll explore together how to overcome inferiority and find the meaning of life. I will interpret it for you through 4 questions. First, why do people feel inferior? Second, what does inferiority bring us? Third, how to overcome inferiority and transcend oneself. Fourth, what is the true meaning of life? Let's first look at the first question. Why do people feel inferior? As we mentioned earlier, many people think that only those with poor conditions feel inferior. However, Adler believed that everyone has a sense of inferiority. When the current situation fails to meet one's needs and expectations, people feel inferior. For example, there's a girl with a tall, enviable figure, but because of her height, she stands out awkwardly among a group of girls. In class lineups, she's always placed at the very end. making her feel isolated. As a result, she feels both distressed and inferior and begins to avoid social interactions. Cases like this, we often encounter in psychological counseling what others consider strengths. But in the person's eyes, it's a source of sadness. So, what to do about having a sense of inferiority? Just wait for death? Not at all. Adler said that the sense of inferiority itself drives us to make changes. However, when we're dissatisfied with the status quo, there's another force that drives us to do things, transcend ourselves, and improve our situation. This force is a sense of superiority. Simply put, it's about wanting to be superior to others. Just as everyone has a sense of inferiority, everyone also pursues a sense of superiority, hoping to break free from reality's constraints. Adler believed that a sense of superiority is a compensation for a sense of inferiority. Why is that so? Let's take an example. You ask an elementary school student what their dream is. Many children say they want to be a teacher, but why? Because children have to face their current state of weakness and powerlessness, while being a teacher makes them feel empowered and able to control those weaker than them. In a child's world, teachers represent authority. Having authority improves their situation and gives them security. The desire to become a teacher is a pursuit of superiority and compensation for inner inferiority. Adler also gave a classic example. He found that children who were sickly or experienced family deaths often strive to become doctors, making them feel they can combat disease and death, overcoming fear for more security. Adler himself took this path into medicine, thus completing his journey from inferiority to transcendence. So, inferiority and superiority are like two sides of the same mirror. Inferiority is the dark side. Dissatisfaction with the present makes us desperate to escape. Superiority is the bright side. Its light pulls us forward, true for both individuals and society. When one realizes their ignorance, they'll read thousands of books and travel thousands of miles. When humanity realizes its ignorance, it unites to advance science. One could say inferiority exists to transcend ourselves, but does it always lead to transcendence? Not necessarily. For example, someone appearing strong who suppresses others to feel superior and gain authority, but this won't help them truly break through. Similarly, becoming a teacher to suppress students or a doctor to dominate lives just to appear superior. Adler believed such people can't overcome deep inferiority, as they only gain security through others' weaknesses without resolving dissatisfaction. This leads to our second question. What does inferiority actually bring us? Adler said inferiority brings motivation, but he stressed avoiding inferiority complexes that lead us astray. For example, a child born into poverty, unable to eat what they want or buy the clothes they desire, he might feel inferior, and thus he could work part-time after school to earn money and make his life a bit better. He might also study harder, hoping to improve his future life and ensure his children don't suffer poverty. At this point, inferiority makes us work harder, continuously improving our living conditions, thus surpassing others and breaking through ourselves to ultimately gain a sense of superiority. Such behavior, in Adler's view, this is a positive compensation for inferiority, giving us motivation. However, some children might spend their parents' hard-earned money to show off, treating friends to meals, or they might wallow in self-pity or blame their parents and resent society. She might think, yes, it's not my fault. It's society's fault. It's my parents' fault. I should have been cared for, and some even deliberately act arrogantly to cover up their inner inferiority. I have no money, but actually I don't care about money at all. This way, he falls into an illusion of superiority, acting disdainful of success and no longer trying to change his situation. In Adler's view, this is a negative compensation for inferiority. It can lead us astray. Negative compensation for inferiority doesn't truly solve problems. The sense of superiority gained is just wishful self-satisfaction, not recognized by society. Going on like this, his problems will pile up and his inferiority complex will grow heavier. Over time, whenever he encounters problems in life, he'll adopt this approach, convinced he absolutely cannot solve them, thus falling into what Adler calls an inferiority complex. Adler tells a story in his book about a girl who was never liked by her family from birth. From age 12, she started hanging out with young men and had a 10-year history of theft, which made her relationship with her mother very poor. The girl told Adler, honestly, I don't like sneaking around, nor do I like hanging out with boys. I do this to let my mother know she can't control me at all, Adler said. This girl clearly felt her mother didn't like her, so she was very inferior. She tried to gain superiority by taking revenge on her mother, proving she was stronger than her mother. The result, it only made her situation worse. Those trapped in an inferiority complex, to alleviate anxiety, inevitably desperately seek superiority. Instead, it's easier to go astray. So, how can we avoid falling into an inferiority complex and achieve self-transcendence? This brings us to the third question. Adler presents a crucial viewpoint in this book. In the process of self-transcendence, the life goals we establish influence our direction forward. Simply put, life goals are what you aim to achieve. Adler said that when humans want to reach the moon, they'll find ways to overcome physical limitations in Earth's gravity to achieve this goal. If you want to enter Peking University or Tsinghua University, you'd endure 10 years of hard study without hesitation. Returning to the girl we mentioned earlier, she behaved unreasonably because she set the wrong goal. She believed gaining superiority meant taking revenge on her mother. This goal determined her actions. Even if she stopped hanging out with young men or stealing, she'd find other ways to get revenge. But if she adjusted her life goal, striving to improve herself and become more likable to achieve true superiority, those problematic behaviors would naturally disappear. Another example is a lazy child who criticism can't help. His laziness serves a purpose, seeking parental attention, making laziness just a tool. Clearly, one's goals determine how they'll change their situation, which is key to achieving self-transcendence. So here's a question. How does a person's life goal form? What if we set wrong goals? Freud's innate determinism believes childhood experiences form subconsciousness that determines one's life. Behaviorism founder, psychologist Watson, believed environment determines everything. He said, give him any child and he could shape them into anything. We often say, this child was born this way, or it's bad parenting. Adler also valued childhood experiences greatly, but he believed while psychology can't escape heredity or environment, it's not entirely determined by them. People decide their thoughts through personal interpretations, which create different life goals. For instance, both had difficult childhood experiences, but one thinks, I'll work hard to change this so my children won't suffer the same. So thus, his goal becomes working hard to pursue a better life. Others might think, the world treated me badly. Why should I treat it well? So they seek revenge on society. But Adler believed, even if people initially set wrong goals, we can always reinterpret past experiences and correct life goals at any time. Life is an ongoing process of interpreting experiences to find truth, which is also self-transcendence. Take the tall girl we mentioned earlier. If she re-examines her past, she'll realize people didn't isolate her for her height, but because she withdrew socially due to her own perceptions. With more initiative and less self-criticism, her social issues resolve naturally. So, when feeling inferior and frustrated, where should we start? Identify problems and establish new goals. Adler offers two pathways to explore this. The first pathway is early memories. Adler said personal memories reveal the most secrets among all psychological phenomena. He shared a real case. A female client who always resented, envied, and suppressed younger women, unable to cooperate with them. Adler helped her recall childhood memories. She'd been asked to delay school to wait for her younger sister, making her feel neglected. Thus, defeating younger women became her goal. Now, this explained her adult resentment toward younger women. When reviewing memories, note accuracy isn't crucial. Its value lies in revealing our judgments about ourselves and environment. Like, they always insult me, proving the world is like this. Such judgments help us identify problems. Additionally, we can use dreams. Adler believed when desires conflict with common sense, dreams help bypass logic to reinforce goals. For example, the book mentions a female client who was naturally beautiful and adored since childhood, making her feel she deserved constant care. But common sense tells us no one constantly needs or receives others' care. Unwilling to face this reality, she frequently dreamed of being alone and terrified. Her dreams allowed her to justifiably escape common sense and reinforce her goal of being cared for. We often encounter similar situations. Someone hoping for unearned gains knows gambling ruins lives, yet dreams of striking rich, fueling fantasies that override common sense. Such fantasies resemble dreams, supporting his gambling life goal. When we understand how past experiences influence current goals through early memories and dreams, we can reinterpret experiences and establish new life goals. But Adler noted reinterpreting experiences isn't easy. It's constrained by how we understand life's meaning. Distinguishing Adler's value driven individual psychology from traditional neutral psychoanalysis. He believed all people pursue life's value and meaning. Simply put, we want to know why we live and what legacy we'll leave. This forms the foundation for establishing life goals. So, what exactly is life's meaning, and how can I find it? This brings us to the fourth question. Adler believed life's true meaning lies in three great facts humans must face. First, we live on resource limited Earth, requiring survival skills and resource exchange with others. Second, we can't overcome all difficulties alone. We must connect with others and harness collective strength. Third, with two sexes for procreation, we can't avoid love and marriage. These three facts correspond to three problems. They are occupation, social ties, and marriage. Adler believed solving these requires relationships. Ultimately, we must cooperate with others. The meaning of our lives can only be reflected through interactions and cooperation with others. For a person to cooperate with others, their actions must be helpful to others and contribute to society. Otherwise, no matter how much they possess, their existence holds zero meaning for others. As mentioned earlier, if a teacher only wants to dominate and feel important, they'll scold and criticize students. Then only they themselves consider themselves important, not gaining students' recognition. Conversely, if this teacher has strong social responsibility and genuinely wants to contribute, students will truly recognize the teacher, who can then maximize their value, making their existence meaningful. In Adler's view, those trapped in inferiority complexes often interpret life's meaning in extremely personal terms. Their interests usually remain self-centered, making it hard to help others or cooperate. Then where do cooperation skills come from? How should we learn to cooperate with others? Adler believed cooperation originates in the family, where one learns to care for others and cooperate. At birth, one first contacts the mother, who primarily cares for infants, so cooperation is first taught through her example. So, when the child is sad, mother's gentle hug. When eating, or smiling approval. Every detail makes the child like and want to cooperate with her. Moreover, mothers should encourage interaction with fathers, urge children to leave home to play with peers, or expanding trust and friendships. However, if a mother is self absorbed, she'll control and compete with the child. For example, telling the child, without me, you can't eat, your father doesn't care, making the child dependent on her to feel important. Such mothers can't teach equal cooperation, expand the child's connections, let alone develop cooperation skills. Once the child leaves the mother, say for school, problems may arise. The child will want mother nearby, possibly acting coy, crying, or faking illness to get her attention. On the other hand, he might also throw tantrums and talk back to his mom, which is also a way to seek attention. In family life, the roles of both father and mother are equally important. And a child's initial concept of marriage is learned from their parents. If both parents cooperate equally, the child learns how to get along well with a spouse and others in the future. If one parent always tries to dominate the other, like a hot-tempered father who thinks everyone must obey him, the child might see marriage as enslavement or subordination, showing how important family cooperation is. Moreover, cooperation between parents serves as a model for the child to learn cooperation. Of course, if you didn't learn cooperation well in the family, it doesn't mean you can't cooperate. As Adler said, it depends on what you learn from it. For example, in some families with two children, parents don't know how to balance relationships. The arrival of younger siblings reduces the attention the older child receives. Some older children interpret their parents' behavior as the younger ones needing care because they're small. Thus, they help parents take care of the younger siblings, thereby developing responsibility and cooperation skills. But other children feel parents prefer the younger siblings, so they always try to attract attention. As adults, they're more prone to compare and compete with others. This shows how personal interpretation affects people. Beyond family influence, the impact of school teachers, classmates, and social relationships cannot be ignored. Even as adults, we can still enhance our cooperation skills through learning, because at any time we can reinterpret our experiences. Okay, now let's summarize the content of the book Inferiority and Transcendence. Everyone has a sense of inferiority and superiority. The existence of inferiority and superiority drives us to pursue excellence. It motivates us to overcome difficulties and transcend ourselves. To overcome inferiority and achieve transcendence, we must establish our life goals and find meaning in life. Adler believed that the meaning of life cannot be solely one's own meaning. To survive, we must cooperate with others, and cooperation requires us to be helpful to others and contribute to society. Only then can we find the true power to overcome inferiority. All right, that's our interpretation of inferiority and transcendence for you. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.